Alrighty, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Matthew, and I'm the marketing assistant here at New Cloud Networks. On the webinar today, you'll hear from myself. We've got Brendan McCoy from Veeam also on today. We might be able to get Jason on the phone if he's available. He's a super busy guy, but we'll see. And today we're going to be talking about this intelligent data management strategies with Veeam and New Cloud. Especially in this hyper-available world, we always need our data now. And instantaneously. So we want to definitely lead you through some of the best practices to devising a strategy that can help you achieve this. If at any time you guys have questions during this webinar, there's a little questions feature on the GoToWebinar panel that you should see on your screen. Feel free to fill that out and we'll address all the questions at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, let's jump on in. All right, so to kick things off, data is hypercritical. We all know that. We're in an age where data is the engine of digital transformation. It's really the lifeblood of the applications your business uses. And many like to think of data as the new currency of business, right? Without data driving intelligent decision-making and keeping operations flowing, it's really tough to turn profits. Data is the new driver of technologies, solutions, business units, and it really helps businesses go into new markets, uncover growth opportunities, improve decision-making, etc. Data about who, when, how, where, and why products and services are used gives engineers, designers, manufacturers, doctors, and more insight on how to improve and innovate. So data is really crucial no matter what role you're in. On a day-to-day basis, everyone's using data. But even as the value of business criticality of data has grown in our digital age of digital transformation, the challenges of managing data have grown as well, right? You got IT teams that are finding it really hard to manage big data, making sure that big data is constantly available for employees and external customers, and maintaining visibility into all the data that enters and leaves their business. So the hypergrowth of data, the sheer amount of data and its rapid growth is a super big challenge. The size of the digital universe is at least doubling every 2 years, and that's equating to more than a 50-fold growth of data in a little over a decade, which is just enormous. It's growing exponentially. Not only is there much more data, it's also changing at more rapid and unpredictable rates. With the Internet of Things, there's a lot of different technologies that are producing data and also intaking data at different rates. There are a lot of different sources, right? So traditional servers, mobile devices, even your automobiles, they produce data at various changing rates. So as data grows and changes, so do the costs of managing that data, and not just storing it, but securing it, moving it from place to place, and also the lost opportunity costs, right? So if you don't have your data immediately available where and when you need it, you might miss out on certain insights, or there could also be flawed analyses with the data if it's not correct and up to date. There's also the cost of data misuse, right? So data loss, data theft, that can really damage your reputation, loss of customer trust. There's really a sort of avalanche effect if you're not able to manage this data sprawl intelligently. And data is everywhere. So it's not just within your business, but it's sprawling everywhere. So there are many apps today that could be located around the world in private, public, and managed clouds, SaaS cloud providers, on-premise clouds, and sometimes this data gets locked in legacy apps and disparate databases where ownership is sometimes fragmented. So the bottom line is that data can be lost among the myriad of sort of incompatible devices and systems. And we want to make sure you have insight, making sure that your platforms are compatible with one another. I found a stat yesterday actually from Statista, claims that there are 26.6 billion connected Internet of Device things in the world, which is just incredible. So again, it's not just your laptops and cell phones anymore. It's watches, refrigerators. Data that your business could rely on could be coming from so many different sources, and they're not just traditional sources anymore. So we've talked about hypercriticality, hypergrowth, hypersprawl of data, nothing new, but it does beg the question and does beg a new need in the marketplace, and that is for a new kind of availability solution. So a platform that's really designed around the hyper-availability of data for your business. And businesses need a platform and infrastructure where data can sense and react, right, to the needs of your business in real time, where data can move securely through multi-cloud, hybrid cloud environments, and you can maintain visibility into your data from any sort of point wherever your data is located. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Brandon from Veeam. He's going to go through the 5 stages of intelligent data management. Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks everyone for joining today. So yeah, I'm a system engineer over here at Veeam Software, and I deal mostly with our cloud service providers, managed service providers, and I think that's a really important area just to focus on when we're talking about intelligent data management, because you have multiple customers all across different locations, and you have to really manage those and deliver SLAs. So Veeam wants to help you do that along with NewCloud. And we want to do that in a way where we're not just throwing different products at different problems, but we're delivering you this solution, right? And we're going to talk about what that solution is specifically. And we're going to start by going through the 5 stages of intelligent data management. So if you see here, this is kind of Veeam's vision. And Veeam's vision is to be the most trusted software company for intelligent data management across all workloads. And we do that by protecting across any app, any data, any cloud. You may hear me say that a few times during this presentation because that's really the message that we want to deliver, right? Like Matthew was saying, we want our data anytime at our fingertips. And I always like to equate it to the internet. When the internet first came out, you had to go home, you had to hit your dial-up, log in to get your email on this big, bulky machine. Nowadays, we have the internet at our fingertips, on our phones, on our TVs, and we want our data to kind of be that same way where we can get it anywhere, and that's how Veeam goes through these 5 stages. So let's take a look at the first stage, and that's going to be backup. A little history. Veeam, when they first came out, had a statement that they were the #1 VMware backup, right? Because that's all they really did, is they protected VMware workloads. And then they added in Hyper-V, and so they changed their message to #1 virtual backups, right? And then through the years, they changed their messaging quite a bit, and we're really getting now back to backup, right? Backup is core, right? And it's our flagship solution is backup and replication, which backs up VMware, Hyper-V, Nutanix. It also can centrally manage your Veeam agents for physical machines. So we really look at this as a whole. It's no longer just virtual workloads running on some sort of hypervisor, but it's all different kinds of data that needs to be backed, and we need to make sure that we can recover those backups very quickly. We can test those backups with things like Veeam's Sure Backup and virtual labs, sandboxing, all kinds of really cool things that you can do with your backups, a lot more than just a simple restore. So we start with that first pillar and we move on to stage 2. Stage 2 is going to be aggregation, right? So again, Matthew mentioned data sprawl, right? The growth of data going everywhere, all different kinds of data sets, different kinds of platforms. How do we manage all that, right? And so we want to put all that together and deliver this solution that allows you to intelligently manage this data, again, across any app, any data, any cloud, and kind of bring that all together. We have products like the Veeam Availability Console, which can help you see all your customers' workloads and, single pane of glass for your green, yellow, red check marks of whether things are successful or not, being able to see how much data is being backed up across different repositories and different kinds of workloads, and really not having to, log into all different kinds of products to manage those data sets, but having one place to go to manage them all, and that's aggregation. So we move through those first stages, we backed up everything, we have a way to manage all those, and then we move into the third stage, which is visibility. So with visibility, we need that single pane of glass, but we need to also be able to keep an eye on all these different environments. We need to really dive deep into the environments and look at these data sets and get different kind of analysis on these data sets, right? We have products like Veeam One, which is a very powerful monitoring and reporting tool. It's going to look at your production environment, tell you things like, CPU utilization, data store read writes, backup sets. How many backups do you have? Are you protected for customer SLAs, right? A lot of times we need to make sure that we have multiple copies of our backups. We have enough backups to go back 30 days or 60 days, whatever the customer's requirements are. So having that visibility across all those data sets is also crucial. We then move into stage 4, which is orchestration. So orchestration is a little different than aggregation in terms of what we're doing with that data, where we're putting it, where we're moving it, right? Think of things like migrations from physical to virtual, from on-prem to in the cloud, right? Maybe you have an on-prem Exchange server and you want to move that data into Office 365 or vice versa. Maybe you already have Office 365 and you need to use Veeam's backup for Office 365 products so that you can protect those workloads. maybe in a cloud-to-cloud solution where New Cloud will back up all your Office 365 data into one of their secure data centers, and you've got this multi-cloud solution, right? So orchestrating that data. We also have additional features such as GDPR, or right to be forgotten. Maybe a client has some sensitive data that you've backed up. You no longer support that client and they need to have their data removed. We can actually do that. You can do a staged restore where you restore the backup file and you remove whatever sensitive data. So really being able to manipulate data, move it around very quickly in and out of different clouds, different infrastructures, that's stage 4 orchestration. And last but not least, we have stage 5, which is automation. This is moving from a policy-based backup to a behavior-based backup, or to a behavior-based data management. No longer having to manually schedule backups at a certain time of the day or recover when you manually realize something has happened, but instead having more machine learning, self-managing backups. Now, I will admit that there's only a few things that Veeam can do in this area now, and we have made it quite clear that stage 5 is really just our roadmap. It's a vision for the future, right? Veeam's always on the front end, the leading edge of protecting new workloads and understanding that everyone's moving to the cloud, so we want to be number one cloud backup provider, right? And so automation is just making sure that we're ahead of the curve, that we're right there with customers and managed service providers to automate that data and to make things a little more machine learning, behavior-based. So I mentioned at the beginning that we're not trying to throw a bunch of products at the wall and hope they stick. We're trying to offer you a solution. I told you that I would tell you what that solution is, and that is the Veeam Hyper Availability Platform. Now, this is not a product per se. This is the Veeam offering, right? Veeam does have a lot of different products because, let's face it, there's a lot of different workloads out there. And if we're going to cover all those different workloads, whether it's, IBM Solaris Spark machines, physical Linux boxes, Office 365, right? We have different APIs, we have different code. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to condense those into a platform where you can manage those things more easily, right? And so if you look here at this little ring from left to right, you see the kinds of environments where Veeam fits, right? And that's the private cloud, that's managed clouds, whether maybe it's a hybrid kind of customer and service provider cloud offering. Some public clouds, maybe you have workloads running in Azure or AWS and you need to protect those and back those up. We have the Internet of Things, right? Edge, IoT, we talked about that a little bit earlier, right? Refrigerators, video games, watches. SaaS solutions. So I talked a little bit about Microsoft Office 365, right? Maybe you need to have a cloud-to-cloud solution where you're backing up that Office 365 data into another private or hybrid cloud, because Office 365 doesn't ensure your data is going to be protected. It just gives you a place for that data to live. And then finally, physical. Again, I mentioned some of the different operating systems for physical backups, being able to do bare metal restores on dissimilar hardware, right? Those are all super, super important. And then if you look in the middle here, we see how we accomplish managing all these solutions and kind of giving it, a little bit of aggregation and orchestration. Start from the bottom with our universal APIs. So this is going to be your storage integrations, our SAN vendor plugins, whether that's the NetApps, the Nimbles, the 3PARs of the world, right? Being able to leverage backup from storage snapshots, right? Taking the load off of your production machines and doing the backups underneath at the SAN level. And we're doing that with backup and recovery, as well as replication and failover. So big difference between, backup as a service and disaster recovery as a service. Backup as a service is low overhead. It's good for long recovery point objectives, also known as RPOs, right? Good for just, having to restore a file or having to go back from a few days ago. Disaster recovery as a service, completely different thing, right? A little more overhead, probably a little more expensive. But these are for your, tier 1 applications, right? Immediate, failover, business continuity. Think of things like a web server with a pay app, right? And, you go on the website to buy some nice shoes and you try to check out and it doesn't work because that web server is down. And you, the customer, you enter your credit card once, twice, and then you're gone. You're off to the next website. That company's losing money. Those are the machines we need to think about maybe having a replica of where we can just instantly power those on, maybe in New Cloud's secure data centers, right? When we look at cloud, again, New Cloud having backup as a service, disaster recovery as a service. Maybe you need someone to host your data for you live in production. And the SaaS offerings, the Office 365s, the physical, having visibility and control of all those. So again, that's the single pane of glass, that's the centralized management, parts of the intelligent data management platform we talked about. And at the top, we see data labs. This is, again, how you verify your backups, how you sandbox and test the new firmware patches and updates on your machines before you bring those into production. And most importantly, having a single pane of glass. Can you click the slide transition, please? So having that single pane of glass for all of these workloads across all different infrastructures, clouds, how do you manage those from a single pane of glass? And that's what Veeam delivers with those 5 stages of intelligent data management. And I think with that, I'll pass it back over to Matt. Oh, nope, sorry guys, I have a few more slides here, my apologies. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the 3-2-1 rule. So the 3-2-1 rule is super important. And that's having 3 copies of your data on 2 different devices with one offsite or maybe offline if you have like a tape device. And the thinking there is if you follow 3-2-1, you should have 0 errors for backup and recoverability verification. So those 3 copies of your data, the first is your production data, maybe VMware, Hyper-V, physical. The 2 different media, you have one on a local disk on site, and then you have one offsite, maybe in new cloud data centers, so that you can protect yourself not only from a bad, repository, a failed drive, but also complete outage. The whole building maybe runs out of power or something, and that's that offsite copy. Next slide, please. So within the Veeam functionality, we have something called the backup copy job. So backup copy job allows you to send your backups from one repository to the next. There's quite a few animations here, Matt, so yeah, thanks. We can just kind of go through them. So sending full backups across from one repository to the next. Now we have, the 3-2, at least the 3 and 2. We don't have the 1 yet because we're still just backing up from one repository to the next, but at least you have multiple copies of your backups. Now, with the cloud solution, New Cloud Networks is going to be able to offer you that same thing, that backup copy job, and we're going to do it across TLS tunnel without the need of a VPN. We see the same thing, our backups going from one side to the other. We can have our full backups there. Now, the backup copy job is also going to allow for your grandfather, father-son type backups. It's going to be, your weekly, monthly, yearly backups, and consolidating all those. So we see there our GFS. And so not only does the backup copy job allow you to have multiple copies of your backups, but it also allows you to consolidate your backups and start rolling those in to the, weekly, monthly, yearlies. Now, Cloud Connect, which is kind of what we touched on a little bit, but to dive a little deeper, we're still doing a backup copy job, but instead of having it at a second repository at your data center, you're going to instead send those to New Cloud's data centers, and they're going to store those for you in their secure data centers. They're going to use this functionality that's built into Veeam called Cloud Connect, and basically it's just a gateway. There's no VPN needed, and you're securely going to send your backups across the internet into their data centers, and it works quite the same. They're going to have repositories carved out for each tenant, and you're going to send your full and then incremental changes of backups across the WAN. Now, you can also send your backups directly across the internet without that first copy, but this does not adhere to the 3-2-1 rule because you only have one copy of your data. Now, Cloud Connect Replication. Oops, we can go to the next slide. This is that disaster recovery as a service. So New Cloud Networks is going to have a host at their side, either VMware or Hyper-V, and they're going to allow you to replicate your VMs one-to-one from your side to New Cloud side, and those VMs are just going to be powered off. So if your machines were to be hit with some kind of ransomware or site outage, you could do a partial failover and connect the existing VMs to the ones over at New Cloud's networks. We'll provide a layer 2 tunnel, or even in a full site failover, you could still reach those VMs from a cloud portal, and that will be something like a full site failover where you have no smoking crater kind of data center. So lastly, time to restore. There's 2 different options. You can restore the whole VM or just the section that was infected. Quite a few slides here too, so if you just want to kind of click through those every few seconds. Instant VM recovery, full recovery, being able to know that you have a good copy. Again, I mentioned sandboxing, testing those VMs out. We can actually now run antivirus scans on your backups before we restore them, just to make sure that they're good to go. So we can run or restore from a storage snapshot as well. Again, we talked about those universal APIs, or from the backup target, and of course from offline tape, or maybe even new clouds off-site, right? Restoring from those remote sites or the cloud. So you got a lot of different options with Veeam, whether it's a whole machine, a file, or even like an application like an email or something like that. And with that, I think now I will turn it back over to Matt. Thanks.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, so I just want to take a quick step back and give you all some context as to who NewCloud is, for those of you who haven't heard of us before. We're a cloud services provider. We've been in business since 1988. And obviously, we weren't in the business of cloud back then, or else we would have had some great foresight. But our background is in networking, and we've evolved several times over the years to adjust our offerings according to the changes in tech. We've amassed over 1,000 customers in the US and Europe. We're a platinum level Veeam cloud service provider as well. So we work hand in hand with Veeam. We love the Veeam team. And we were one of the first launch partners for Cloud Connect with Veeam. We built a pretty good reputation for quality within our industry, and our SLA and customer satisfaction ratings really do a great job of exemplifying that. So as Brandon outlined, the cloud is really crucial to intelligent data management in a number of those 5 steps, especially in stage one, where we talk about backup. The cloud really helps businesses adopt the 3-2-1-1-0 cloud backup rule, where the cloud serves as one type of media and also creates that one crucial offsite copy of your data for your business. And in the aggregation stage, organizations can really drive digital services across multiple clouds to ensure business continuity. One of those clouds being NewCloud, of course. In stage 3, the visibility stage, Veeam creates that single pane of glass, and that's where we work hand in hand with Veeam, so that Veeam's single pane of glass can look into NewCloud networks or into your on-premise infrastructure, or even from cloud to cloud. In stage 4, the orchestration stage, again, reiterating that Veeam really helps organizations move workloads from one infrastructure to another. So that could be from your on-premise physical infrastructure to NewCloud's infrastructure through our virtual environments, public, private, or hybrid cloud, however you like to slice it. And in stage 5, automation, I really think it could be really cool one day with Veeam and NewCloud. How amazing would it be if, for example, you had data on-premise in Miami, and that data knew that in the wake of an approaching hurricane, it should move itself to our Atlanta data center. So again, like Brennan said, that's certainly on the roadmap down the road in the future. But to me, it's pretty cool to see data really how it can become intelligent and make decisions on its own and move on its own, thanks to NewCloud and Veeam. So speaking of our Atlanta data center, this is our nationwide network map here. We really built this network for the purpose of backup and disaster recovery. Again, it's important to have your data far enough away from your main site that you won't be affected by the same natural disaster or regional disaster, but also close enough so that it's usable when you actually need to stand up those VMs, making sure the latency is really low. That way you can get data when you need it immediately. We are able to control the bandwidth and latency between all these locations because we own the fiber in between our data centers. We don't charge any additional ingress or egress bandwidth fees as you move your data between our data centers or from on-premise into our data centers. That's something that not a lot of competitors are able to provide. And our connections are super, super low latency, no more than 27 milliseconds between any one location. And that's incredibly important because the longer you're down, the longer it takes data to get from one point to another, the more money you could be losing. So at NewCloud, we believe that great technology is powered by great people. We're always being asked what separates us from the likes of Amazon and Microsoft, and our answer is always the same. We really believe in that personalized service. So we're not going to be a 1-800 number. Our customers can rest assured that we have top engineers available to them 24/7 by 365. We know that no two companies are the same, right? So we don't believe in those cookie cutter cloud solutions. And we work really closely with our customers to ensure that we develop solutions that really address their core business needs. And we implement these solutions using best-of-breed technology, VMware, Cisco, NetApp, and we're able to provide our customers solutions at a very affordable price. So bottom line is we believe in taking care of our customers. So some of our different solutions and services, we do offer security as a service solutions. So in order to keep your data hyper available, we offer things like intrusion detection and prevention, email security, backup as a service. We also have the ability to run vulnerability scans, remediation consulting as well, just making sure that your data is always available for you. With our virtual private data center, infrastructure as a service services, we can handle the delivery and data center resource management for you while also giving you access to virtual machine management. This is all powered by leading VMware technologies. And then, like we already mentioned, backup and disaster recovery. These are all Veeam-powered services that utilize Cloud Connect and Cloud Connect Replication, as Brandon walked us through earlier. And if needed, we also provide hosted phones and desktop as a service as well. So we really want to help you get your data off-premise into the cloud where we can scale on demand, achieve that operational cost model, and really build in redundancy to your data availability strategy. Awesome. So thanks everyone for joining us today. I hope you learned a little bit more about intelligent data management strategies thanks to NewCloud and Veeam. And of course, as your business continues to grow, you're going to get more and more data, and we want to really work hand in hand with you and with Veeam to help you manage that data as intelligently as possible. We've heard a lot about NewCloud and Veeam today. We'd love to also hear from you guys. If you have any questions, again, please go ahead and put those in that little questions panel on your screen. We also have a free trial going right now. So if you want to kick the tires and test our backup as a service, certainly please reach out to us and we can get that scheduled and started for you. I do have my contact information on here. Jason wasn't able to join today, but his contact info is on there as well. Please don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us. Brandon McCoy is also a great resource. If you email me or Jason, we can get you connected to Brandon as well. But go ahead, if there are any questions in there, feel free to add them to the questions pane and we will address them here in just a moment. So it doesn't look like any questions are coming through the chat feature, which is fine for now. But if you do have any questions, do feel free to follow up. Again, my contact info is there. Jason's is there as well. Don't hesitate to reach out. We can certainly help answer any questions you may have. But thanks everyone for being on today. We look forward to hearing from you and hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday. Thanks so much.